To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. For those who are present, if you have a noise-making device, would ask that you turn it to silent mode or off so as not to interfere with our electronic communications. We do have one proclamation recognition this morning. We'll do so at this time. I'm going to ask Jay Leipzig, who's Director of Planning, to join me at the podium this morning. We have a proclamation prepared recognizing Planning Month. Johnson County Planning Department, I understand, was organized back in 1978. And the task was to review zoning activities in the unincorporated part of the county, working with our zoning boards as well as applicants and citizens in the unincorporated part of the county. So Jay, I'm going to present this proclamation to you. And I think you have a comment or two, so you're welcome to make that at this time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. I'm Jay Leipzig, the Planning, Housing, and Community Development Director. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and accept this proclamation for National Planning Month on behalf of the Planning Department. And for the month of October. The National Planning Month was established in 2006 and represented the American Planning Association, which is our national affiliation. And this organization has developed a couple of key recognition programs, the Great Places in America program and the Great Streets in America program. Now, we don't have one of those streets or places in Johnson County yet, but we are working on it. We do have, there's one great street in Kansas, that's Massachusetts Street, is on the Great Streets recognition program, and Great Places, the Plaza, the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City, Missouri, is also listed. So, as I said, one of these days we will have a street in Johnson County. That's my goal, or a place. So I just want to mention very briefly this morning the planning staff that's here, and you all know most of these people, but this is kind of my dream team. I've been here for 5 years, and assembling the staff has really been a great joy. I think they're just experienced, competent people who work very hard daily. And it's a difficult job because oftentimes they're balancing the interests between the property owner and the public sector and the policy implications. So it's not an easy job, and it's not a set, you don't have clear parameters sometimes, and there's always some gray areas, and so I do appreciate the people that are here. I wanted to recognize Sean Penley, Diane Wickland, and yeah, come on up, you guys, did I call your name? Sean Penley, Diane Wickland, Michelle Leininger, Michelle Cricks, and Karen Miller is not here this morning. Also, I wanted to introduce Zoe Brown. Zoe is our planning intern that's spending a year with us as well, so we're excited to have her join us. You might see her up here one of these Thursdays presenting. So it's a pleasure to work with these people every day. As the chairman was saying, the planning department was established in 1978, and at that time we had 9 zoning boards throughout the county. We've consolidated those 9 zoning boards into 3, so it's much more manageable at this time. But we do have our 3 zoning boards, our Board of Zoning Appeals, as well as our Planning Commission, and then also we have another board with contract licensing on that department. So we're always busy. There's always something to do, and there's a lot of people that are behind the scenes as well. Sherry Cross does all of our zoning notifications, and Megan Lynch. We have almost 60 public hearings a year for various projects, and there's only been a handful of times I can count on one hand that we have had some kind of issue with the notification. So we've always been very, very good about that. I think that's the key. But this staff is really the reason why they've been so successful. So it's a pleasure to accept this today, and I appreciate the time this morning.
Well, Jay, thank you very much, and thank you to your staff for all the good work that you do. And I think we have several zoning items this morning on our agenda, so we will see you again. But please
Okay.
put the proclamation. We'll take a photo here. And Next on our agenda, we'll turn to the public comment portion. And for those who are speaking, comments are limited to 2 minutes. And if you go over, then the chair will ask you to conclude your comments. And so at this time, the clerk will read, we have a couple of virtual comments, so we'll start there, and the clerk will read the first commentator.
Our first virtual, excuse me, is Debbie Detmer. Debbie Detmer.
Hi, I'm Debbie Detmer of Shawnee. CONAC gave privileges to the Chinese contractors in China. These contractors in China were literally writing the code for CONAC's EMS platforms, such as Pole Chief and the Field Force Manager. This kind of access means the code writers can literally do whatever they want. I am grateful that you in the election office have stopped using CONAC, even though it took you 2 weeks to do it. I am still confused on your report of 9,800 poll workers. You first say 825 people have a driver's license number entered into the poll chief administrative system, reported 1021. Then October 24th, the election office sends a report that in 2016, you now have found another 763 poll workers where social security numbers had been shared with CONAC. In this report, you now claim only 1,319 people have been identified and the sheriff has been notified. So you're saying 825 plus 763 equals 1,319. And I beg to differ because that total is 1,588 people at high risk. Did you lose 269 people somewhere? I am totally confused not only with your math, but the fact that only partial number of poll workers' information was shared. How did that happen? If I use a system, then consistently fill out the information the same time every time, I have also spoken to several poll workers. They filled out your application online or in person. They all gave driver's license numbers and social security cards as well for your records. So if using the poll chief software, I would assume that the information from the poll workers, the system, I would consistently fill out the information the same time every time. I have spoken to, would be the same the next time and the next time, etc. I would fill it out the same. So please explain how some social security numbers were added and some driver's license were added. How does that happen? Is the number of 9,800 poll workers just for 2022, or is that the whole time from 16 to 22? Please fix your math, and I know Sheriff Hayden will get to the bottom of this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
In person now we have Ben Hobart. Ben Hobart.
Ben Hobart, Westwood Hills. Last week, the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices recommended that the clot shots be added to the adolescent vaccine schedule for children. Many states incorporate these as compulsory for school attendance. It is my general understanding with limited research at this time that Kansas does not necessarily incorporate them, but I'm going to continue to look at that. So let's look at what they approved. In the New England Journal of Medicine, October 19th, evaluation of mRNA 1273 vaccine in children 6 months to 5 years of age. In the appendix on page 62, table S26, they set forth the adverse events realized in the placebo group and the mRNA group. Actually, very minimal differences. Medically attended cases, 34.2% in placebo, 33.1% in the clot shot group, a 0.9% difference. Severe cases, 11 in the placebo group, 1.1%, 25 in the 0.8% in the clot shot group for 2 to 5 years. In the 6 to 23 months, actually more severe cases in the clot shot group than in the placebo group. If you go down and look at the severe cases, for all data points, 8.8% in the placebo, 0.6% in the mRNA. The differences are inconsequential. But then down in the footnote, the other SAE considered related was new onset type 1 diabetes mellitus and diabetic ketoacidosis in a 1-year-old female 37 years post-dose 2. I looked at VAERS. There are 511 cases of initial onset of diabetes in all age groups. There are 35 in the under 21 age group. 8 of those were life-threatening. 5 permanently disabled, 1 died. And we're recommending this? Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Judy Jackson. Judy Jackson.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm from Lenexa, Kansas, and I'm here regarding a request for paper ballots for this upcoming election due to the fact that Greg Phillips and Catherine Engelbart from True the Vote have come into contact, and the Justice Department has announced that federal oversight of a plan for Kansas elections. Federal oversight. And so I'm requesting that we have paper ballots due to the fact that Conic Incorporated is currently under investigation and that in Los Angeles County, Eugene Yu was arrested for illegally allowing its contractors in China to access personal data of Johnson County individuals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now we have Brian Diehouse. Brian Diehouse.
Thank you very much for your time. My name is Brian Diehouse. I live in the unincorporated area of Johnson County. I'm here because I attempted to pay some tax past due money on my 2020 tax account receipt and was told that that was no longer possible because of this Kansas state law that we are dealing with as far as property taxes. As a taxpayer, I'm part of that group, and I was told that there is a law, Kansas law, that allows also 9% interest on the back taxes until they're paid off. And at that rate, I'm looking at maybe $800+ in 1 year just to try to equalize my taxes. Now, I have 2 minutes, so I wanted to bring that point up, that I don't know, I would like to know what the law is that allows this county to operate legally, and I would like to have just at least a number so I can read it and try to understand it, because I think that's a little bit high. It always has been. I've had, one of the things I would like for the, maybe the group to focus and think on is capping some of these taxes, especially for homeowners that are of an elder, maybe an elder age, their residency is established to where, especially if they're on a fixed income, they cannot keep affording this increase. And I believe this tax that we're having to pay is basically just an estimate. I don't see any difference except my tax bill going up. My house is still the same.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now we have Low Fields. Low Fields.
Good morning. Just watching the gentleman's excitement about the planning took me to, and just excitement and that it can happen. Our nation, I think we have little realization of what we have. I was in Kazakhstan once, and the driver had to go way around this huge, massive damage to the street, and I said, when will they repair that? And he said, not in my lifetime. So here we are. What a nation we live in. I'm here because of a man called Eugene Yu, CEO of Conic, who's an election worker management system software called Poll Chief, along with other Conic modules, has currently been used in Johnson County. This man, Eugene Yu, was arrested October 5th for illegally allowing his contractors in Communist China to access sensitive personal data of the American poll workers in the Conic system. This is of deep concern to me. and should be to all Johnson Countyans. He was arrested, and his company, Conic Inc., is presently under investigation. We're using their software. Reinforcing my concern is the discovery that the Sheriff's Department has reason to believe that the poll worker data was illegally shared in China, so two different confirmations. From 2016 to our current status, we're using their machines. And one of the modules from Conic supports poll worker recruiting, training, enrollment in training classes, updates of personal info, and on and on. So their personal information is going to Communist China.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Your time
Voila.
is up. Yes, thank you.
Chairman, that completes our public speakers.
Just one comment to the gentleman who spoke about tax laws in Kansas. Those tax laws are created by the state legislature, and we are required to follow those. I'll be glad to have someone from the legal department get in touch with you, if that's okay, and can have that conversation. So thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask the clerk to read the notes for the record.
Thank you, Chairman. We have 7 notes for the record. An agreement with the City of Overland Park for the public improvement of 167th Street from Schweitzer Road to Antioch Road. Quivira Road from College Boulevard to 119th Street. Quivira Road from I-435 to College Boulevard. 103rd Street from Lowell Avenue to Metcalf Avenue. Schweitzer Road from 151st Street to 159th Street. 95th Street from Antioch Road to Lowell Avenue. And Quivira Road from 103rd Street to 106th Street.
Okay, thank you very much. Now turning to the agenda items. We have a cold agenda this morning, which does not go through agenda review, so every item is on the action agenda. Would the clerk please read item number 1?
Consider approving the October 6, 2022 business session minutes.
Are there any additions or corrections that need to be made? If not, Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the October 6, 2022 business session minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Hanslick.
Allenbrand made the motion to approve the minutes as presented. Hanslick seconded the motion. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Item number 3,
2.
or 2, excuse me.
Item number 2, consider ratifying the appointment of Stuart A. Curtright, Chairman Representative to the Criminal Justice Advisory Council through October 1st, 2024.
Do I hear a motion? Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to ratify the appointment of Stuart A. Curtright, Chairman Representative for the Criminal Justice Advisory Council through October 1st, 2024.
Hanslick, second.
Allenbrand made the motion. Hanslick seconded the motion to approve the appointment as recommended. Any further questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. We have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 3, consider ratifying the reappointment of Raymond Manley and Scott Martin, Chairman's representatives to the Solid Waste Management Committee through July 8th, 2024.
Do I hear a motion? Ms. Hanslick?
I move to ratify the reappointment of Raymond Manley and Scott Martin, Chairman's representatives to the Solid Waste Management Committee through July 8th, 2024.
Allenbrand, second.
Hanslick made the motion. Allenbrand seconded the motion to approve the reappointment as noted. Any further questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Number 4.
Consider ratifying the reappointment of Daniel Jones, Chairman's Representative to the Solid Waste Management Committee through July 8th, 2025.
Do I hear a motion? Ms. Hanslick,
I move to ratify the reappointment of Daniel Jones, Chairman's Representative to the Solid Waste Management Committee through July 8th, 2025.
Allenbrand, second.
Hanslick made the motion, Allenbrand seconded the motion to approve the reappointment as noted. If there's no further discussion or questions, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 5, consider ratifying the reappointment of Brett Standard, August Huber III, James Brown, and Matt Wild, Chairman's Representatives to the Contractor Licensing Review Board through January 16th, 2026.
Do I hear a motion? Ms. Hanslick.
I move to ratify the reappointment of Brett Standard, August Huber III, James Brown, and Matt Wild, Chairman's Representatives to the Contractor Licensing Review Board through January 16th, 2026.
Allenbrand, second.
Hanslick made the motion, Allenbrand seconded the motion to approve the reappointments as noted. If there's no further questions or discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 6, resolution number 081-22, consider City of Gardner application numbers FDP-22-05, PP-22-04, and FP-22-07, a final development plan, preliminary plat, and final plat for University Park Apartments, a 32-unit townhome and 574-unit apartment complex on approximately 35.5 acres, located north of 167th Street and west of Moonlight Road, within 1 mile of New Century Air Center.
Ms. Kirks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Commission, Michelle Cricks with Johnson County Planning. This is a City of Gardner application for a final development plan, preliminary plat, and final plat for University Park Apartments located north of 167th Street and west of Moonlight Road. This application is going before the Board of County Commissioners this morning because the subject property is located within 1 mile of New Century Air Center to determine land use compatibility as required by Kansas state statute. In September 2022, the City of Gardner approved the final plat, accepting the easements and right-of-way dedication. So before you here is the vicinity map. The final development plan includes 32 townhomes and 574 apartments for a total of 606 dwelling units, a density of 17.1 units per acre, and includes a clubhouse, a pool, surface parking, and a walking trail. In July, this board heard the city's request to rezone the subject property to Plan Garden Apartments and associated preliminary development plan and approved that application with stipulations. At that time, the preliminary development plan did depict 3 ponds on the subject property, which did require addressing wildlife mitigation. However, with this final development plan brought today, those ponds have been removed and negated the need for wildlife mitigation. Here is the proposed elevations for the development. In July, the applicant also received their Federal Aviation Administration 7460 determination to address any possible airspace obstruction, and it was determined the proposed project would not create an airspace obstruction or other hazards to air navigation. Public safety, potential adverse impacts, land use compatibility, and noise sensitivities were reviewed by county planning staff. And while the proposed development is located within 1 mile of New Century Air Center, it is not located within a runway protection zone, an airport interest area, a primary flight corridor, or within the noise impact area. Planning staff recommended approval of this project. The Airport Commission heard this item at their September 28th, 2022 hearing and recommended approval with stipulations. No one from the public commented on the project. And with that, I am available for questions. The applicant is also here and available for questions. Thank you.
Again, the only reason this is before us is because of the proximity to the airport, and the city and the airport commission have approved it, as well as staff. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right, thank you. Questions? Ms. Fast?
Do you have any information, are these market rate, above market rate?
Don't know, but that might be something the applicant can address.
Is that, yeah, I would be interested to know what sort of housing this is bringing forth, because a dire need for housing.
Okay. Perhaps the applicant can speak to that question. Come right ahead.
Hi, my name's Judd Clausen with Phelps Engineering, 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas, civil engineers for the project. This would be a market rate apartment rental community. Does that answer your question?
Is it, people, I mean, every area of the county's defined market rate. Is it workforce housing, luxury, or it's right at market for Gardner?
I mean, market rate for Gardner, I don't really know if that's been determined yet as far as the marketing of the project, but it wouldn't have any kind of subsidies or anything like that. It would be strictly market rate community.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Allenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something that's really needed in Gardner, and so it is kind of the middle of the road. It's not high-end luxury.
That's what I mean,
But
because
it's
market
not-
rate has
it's
a,
also not subsidized in any way, and it met all the criteria of the airport, and no one contested this. So when you're ready, Mr. Chair, I have a motion.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to make any other comments?
Nothing further, just here to answer
Okay.
questions. Thank you.
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone present who would like to comment on this item? If not, it's back before the commission. A motion would be in order. Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adopt resolution number 081-22, approving City of Gardner application number FDP-22-05, PP-22-04, and FP-22-07, a final development plan, preliminary plat, and final plat for the University Park Apartments, a 32-unit townhome, and 574-unit apartment complex on approximately 35.5 acres for the reasons and subject to stipulations as set forth by the resolution.
Hanslick, second.
Allenbrand made the motion. Hanslick seconded the motion to approve the resolution and the Gardner application as noted. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, yes.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 7, resolution number 084-22, consider City of Gardner application number Z-22-06, PDP-22-05, and PP-22-05, rezoning from CO, Commercial Office, and CP2, Planned General Business Districts to RP-4, Planned Mixed Density Neighborhood District, Associated Preliminary Development Plan, and Preliminary Plat for Flint Hill Trails Townhomes, containing 106 townhomes on approximately 28.8 acres located northeast of the intersection of 167th Street and White Drive within 1 mile of the New Century Air Center.
Ms. Leniger.
Good morning, Michelle Leiniger, County Planning staff. This should look slightly familiar from your last project. It is directly across White Drive from the previous project. Again, this is a City of Gardner application review for the purpose of airport compatibility for projects within 1 mile of New Century Air Center. This is a rezoning preliminary development plan and preliminary plat for 106 townhomes on 28.8 acres located northeast of the intersection 167th and White Drive. Here's the aerial that shows the location in relation to the Air Center. Here's a site plan for the property, which is for, again, 106 townhomes, which is 212 units with a clubhouse, a pool, walking trail, playground, and extended dry detention areas. This project was approved by the City of Gardner on August 15th. The subject property is within 1 mile of the statutory review area for the air center, but outside the area designated by the county as airport interest area, shown on the visual. The proposed development is outside the runway protection zone, airport interest area, primary flight corridor, and noise impact area. Additionally, there is no wet stormwater detention to create wildlife hazards. This item was heard at the September 28th Airport Commission meeting, where it was unanimously recommended for approval with stipulations as recommended by staff. No members of the public spoke on this item, and I can answer any questions. There is a representative of the project on Zoom for additional questions.
Questions of the staff? Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say this met all approval from the Airport Commission, and also no one contested it, so it has a lot of amenities, so this is another nice amenity to Gardner.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present on Zoom? Any comments they would like to make?
Mr. Chair, we have Steve Harder.
Okay.
Steve, if you could unmute yourself and if you have any comments.
Yes. No, we're very excited about the project. We're Flint Development, local Kansas City developer, looking to bring a good market rate townhome community to Gardner, Kansas, and provide a build-to-rent community with a lot of amenities to provide, a good housing need for the growing area.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the applicant? All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? If not, Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to adopt Resolution Number 084-22, approving the City of Gardner application number Z-22-06 PDP-22-05 and PP-22-05, rezoning from the CO Commercial Office and CP2 Planned General Business Districts to RP4 Planned Mixed Density Neighborhood District, associated preliminary plat, development plan, and preliminary flat for Flint Trails Townhomes containing 106 townhomes and approximately 28.8 acres for the reasons and subject to stipulations from set forth of the resolution.
Hanslick, second.
Allenbrand made the motion. Hanslick seconded the motion to approve the resolution and the application of the City of Gardner as noted. Any further questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Item number 8, I believe.
Resolution number 086-22, consider City of Olathe application FP 22-0016 for a final plat for one lot on 15 acres and a final site development plan for Chamaya Mission, Kansas City, located near the southwest corner of 151st Street and Flum Road, Olathe, Kansas, and located within 1 mile of the Johnson County Executive Airport.
Ms. Wicklund.
Diane Wicklund, Planning Department. The subject property is located south of 151st Street and on the west side of Flum Road, as shown here on the vicinity map. The subject property is located within the city of Olathe and is located within 1 mile of the Executive Airport, which is why the application is before you for review of airport compatibility. This request is for a City of Olathe application for a final plat and a final site development plan for Chamaya Mission, Kansas City, for construction of a religious institution and community center. Here's an aerial view of the subject property, which is outlined in blue. This map also shows the subject property, which is the red box, and that shows that the property is located outside the flight corridor and outside of the noise impact areas. Here's a copy of the final plat. Here's the final development plan showing the building and the parking areas. And here's the building elevation drawings. Planning staff recommends approval, and the Airport Commission also recommended approval of the final plat and the final development plan with stipulations and had no concerns or issues with the application. Also to note that there were no neighbors of the public that spoke on this application at the public hearing. With that, I can stand for questions, and the applicant is also present on Zoom.
Questions of the staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Wish to make any comment by Zoom?
Chair, we have Dave Hamby. Go right ahead, David.
Yeah, Chairman and Commissioners. This is David Hamby with BG Consultants representing the applicant. Appreciate staff's work on this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, questions of the applicant? All right, thank you very much. Again, anyone present wish to speak to this item? If not, it's back before the commission. This is 5th District. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt resolution number 086-22 as read for the reasons and subject to the stipulations as recommended by the Airport Commission.
Myers, second.
Ashcraft made the motion to approve. Myers seconded the motion to approve the resolution on the application by the City of Olathe as noted. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 9, resolution number 085-22, consider City of Olathe application PAR 22-0023 and FP 22-0014 for a final plat and a final site development plan for Auto Soak Car Wash located on the northeast corner of 151st Street and Haskin Street, Olathe, Kansas, and located within 1 mile of the Johnson County Executive Airport.
Ms. Wicklund.
Diane Wicklund, Planning Department. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of 151st Street and Haskin Street, which you can see here on the vicinity map, which is just east of Flum Road. The subject property is located within the City of Olathe and is located within 1 mile of the Executive Airport. And the application is, again, before you for review of airport compatibility. This is a request for a City of Olathe application for a final plat and a final site development plan for Auto Soak Car Wash for construction of a tunnel car wash facility. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. You can see that outlined in blue. And then this map shows that the property is also located outside the flight corridor and outside of the noise impact areas. Here's a copy of the final plat. And again, here's the final development plan. Here's the building elevation drawings. And then these are a couple of renderings of the building as well. Planning staff recommends approval, and the Airport Commission also recommended approval of the final plat and the final development plan with stipulations and had no concerns or issues with the application. Also to note that there were no members of the public that spoke on this application at the public hearing. And with that, I can stand for questions, and the applicant is also present on Zoom.
Okay. Any questions of the staff? All right. The applicant's available on Zoom.
Chair, we have Mary Claire Amer.
Okay.
Please unmute yourself and you may speak.
Good morning. Mary Claire Amer with Wallace Design Collective, representing the owner. I am here to answer any questions you have on this project.
Okay. Questions of the applicant? All right, thank you excuse me, Ms. O'Hara.
When you are ready, I have a motion.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? All right, if not, Ms. O'Hara, you have a motion?
Yes. I move to adopt resolution number 085-22, approving a final plat and a final site development plan for Auto Soak Car Wash located within 1 mile of Johnson County Executive Airport for the reasons and subject to the stipulations as recommended by the Airport Commission.
Myers, second.
O'Hara made the motion to approve. Meyer seconded the motion to approve the resolution and the application by the City of Olathe as noted and recommended. Any further questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Item number 10.
Consider authorizing the purchase of 8 Osage ambulances from Emergency Services Supply, doing business as Osage Ambulances, using the Buy-Board Cooperative Contract 650-21, approved for use by Johnson County for MEDAC ambulances, utilizing funds from the MEDAC Equipment Reserve Fund, for a total amount not to exceed $2,437,275, thereby rescinding the previous board authorization on June 9th, 2022, to purchase 8 Braun ambulances from Pinnacle Emergency Vehicles, LLC, per Houston Galveston Area Council, HGAC, Cooperative Contract AM 10-20, for use by the Johnson County MEDAC.
Mr. Davis.
Good morning, Commissioners. Paul Davis, Department of Emergency Services Director. Since June 9th, when this board authorized this previous action, MEDAC pre-ordered 8 ambulances and 5 remounts. A significant price increase occurred on the new ambulance purchases. That caused us to stop the process and reconsider all our options, which included an alternative ambulance builder and dealer. After the June 9th board meeting, we proceeded as we stated we would, and we advised Pinnacle Emergency Vehicles, LLC, of the board's approval. A couple of months passed, and we were finally given the final price for the 5 remounts, and that price quote was as we expected. But finally, in September, we were informed that the new ambulances would see an increase by an additional 27%, with that quote totaling over $2.5 million. This was significant and unexpected, and the increase would have caused both prices of both to exceed the approved amount by the board by over $200,000. Because we had been proactive already and previously researched other ambulance builders, we contacted Emergency Services Supply, doing business as Osage Ambulances, to give us a cost estimate for the 8 new ambulances. Osage Ambulances reviewed our ambulance specifications and quoted a price which was less than the price quoted by Pinnacle for the Braun ambulances and would keep us within our spending limits. Therefore, we are asking the board to authorize our request to purchase 8 Osage ambulances from the Emergency Services Supply, doing business as Osage Ambulances on the Buy-Board Cooperative Purchasing Contract 650-21 for a total amount not to exceed $2,437,725, correction, $2,437,275, and to rescind the previous authorization to purchase the Braun ambulances. Our request for spending authority remains the same. It's not going to exceed the $3.3 million that was approved in June, and this is still for the same years that we indicated before. I also want to make an acknowledgement that this has been a trying time, as you know, but the MEDAC team and the fleet management teams have worked very diligently and closely in this constrained period, but not just looking at how we can buy less expensive new ambulances at the same high quality, but also identifying those existing ambulances which we can do some powertrain rebuild and extend longevity. So all options are on the table for us. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. You have experience and/or full confidence in this organization to provide what we need?
I do have experience from a previous time in Illinois, and there are a number of other agencies around the state and the Midwest, around the country actually, who use this product. They are a good quality product.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Ms. Allenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Davis, I just want to thank you for your creative thinking, your leadership, and being proactive not only on your equipment, but also of hiring your staff. And we greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, any insight into what is happening in Braun? Is this a temporary logistical market issue, or is there something else going on, and will they be a reliable resource in the future?
I think that may be a reliable resource in the future, and our remounts are still going to Braun for that remount build, but any insights I would have would purely be speculation.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Hanslick?
First of all, I want to echo Commissioner Allenbrand's gratitude for your hard work to stay within the budget and utilize another vendor. You could have just as easily been coming back to this board to ask for more funding so that we could meet that need. So it's nice that you're coming back with an alternative. Can you just talk a little bit more about the supply chain issues, and is that going to be a problem delaying getting these Osage ambulances? What are we looking at in
The best
time?
information we have at this point is that the chassis are on allocation. And so these vendors have to apply to the auto manufacturers for a certain number. We don't really know what that overall allocation is. We expect that we could get 2 new ambulances in '24 and the remaining one in '25, but that could fluctuate depending on the chassis availability. The other thing that is important to note is Osage is all built on site. So all their materials are manufactured and fabricated on site, including the sheet metal.
Thank you. So I think the bottom line is for residents of the county, you feel certain or secure that we have appropriate equipment to carry us through till those new ambulances are available.
I'm confident in the work that our MEDAC team and our fleet management team are doing to keep our ambulances safe.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Ms. Allenbrand, you have a
Mr. Chair,
question?
I just have another comment that it's not only the ambulances we're experienced, but also fire trucks. So there's a 1 to 2 year wait list for those as well, and that's been a problem ever since COVID. So,
Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? All right, if not, it's back before the commission. Ms. Hanslick?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move the board authorize the purchase of 8 Osage ambulances from Emergency Services Supply, doing business as Osage Ambulances, using the by-board cooperative contract 650-21, approved for use by Johnson County for MedAct ambulances, utilizing funds from the MedAct Equipment Reserve Fund for a total amount not to exceed $2,437,275, thereby rescinding the previous board authorization on June 9th, 2022, to purchase 8 Braun ambulances from Pinnacle Emergency Vehicles LLC per Houston Galveston Area Council HGAC Cooperative Contract AM 1020 for use by Johnson County MedAct.
Allenbrand, second.
Hanslick made the motion. Allenbrand seconded the motion to approve the recommendation in regard to the purchase of the MedAct ambulances and the change in the authorization of the contract previously. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast. Aye. Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Item number 11.
Consider authorizing the acceptance of $595,000 of federal grant funds from the FY 2022 COPS Technology and Equipment Program and the expenditure of those funds utilizing a KCRPC Cooperative Contract Number EVP-2286 with Electronic Technology Incorporated.
Mr. Dugan.
Tom Dugan with the Sheriff's Office. This is a request to accept $595,000 from the Justice Department Community-Oriented Policing Services Grant Program, and also to enter into contract to expend those funds as well. The funds are specifically for the purchase and deployment of license plate readers. We already have some license plate readers throughout the county. This will expand our coverage area. Those readers are used only for criminal investigation, both in real time, like an Amber Alert or Silver Alert, or archive data that might be used in a robbery or burglary or that kind of thing. There is no match, and there's no additional request for anything further other than just the acceptance of the grant and the entering into the contract to purchase the equipment. The vendor for the equipment, ETI, is the vendor that we use for our Genetec equipment, so we have a compatibility issue, so we need to use that same vendor as well. I also have Dave Studite, the Chief Security Officer, with me, who could answer all the hard questions.
That's the way to go.
At that, I can stand for questions.
Mr. Dugan, these readers, are they stationary at intersections, or are they mobile for the deputies and/or police?
It is possible we could have one or two that are mobile, but for the most part, these are going to be stationary units that are going to be at more kind of high traffic area intersections.
Okay, all right, thank you. Other questions? Ms. Hanslick? Or excuse me, Ms. Fast?
Yeah, so will these be then at traffic stops and unincorporated areas?
They could be throughout the entire county. We may have some there will be some that are going to be in the unincorporated area, but we would also work with the cities to make sure we have coverage through the whole area. There were 3 other cities
Why would you be in the city? Cities are in charge of that.
through cooperation with those cities.
I
For
know.
example, we have Mission right now. Mission is also received these funds, but Mission needs additional funding that they don't have to fully cover that area. We would cooperate with them to make sure they have the full coverage.
Okay, well, I just know, I mean, when I was on city council, we approved it, so I just don't want tax duplication here. And I know all the cities around me have approved it, so then if the sheriff's office is putting it in and then the cities are, I mean, how are you then?
We won't do that. We're working with the cities to make sure the coverage is where it's needed.
And how will these be secure and where are they stored at and for the digital information?
That's what I brought Mr. Studite for.
Good morning, Dave Studite, Chief Security Officer. Your question, Commissioner, about the storage of the information. We work with GEMS, both GEMS and DTI. We currently have a Genetec server that's located in the courthouse, and that's where we store our data. It's behind a firewall. It is secure.
Okay, thank you.
And stored where? Here or somewhere in the U.S.?
It's stored here. It's stored on a server at the courthouse.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hanslick?
Yes, I had the opportunity this morning to speak with Mr. Dugan and appreciate Mr. Studite being here because I had a few additional questions. First of all, what policies or guidelines are in place to determine when, where, and under what circumstances the data can be accessed? You said it was being stored here. Who controls that access?
The sheriff's department would control the access. So it's law enforcement sensitive information. So if someone were to request information from the LPRs, it would be vetted. It'd be similar to if we got a request for video throughout the county. So it would go, if someone submitted a Cora request for video, it would be vetted through sheriff's records, and I'm sure that I would have input on that, and that's how it would be vetted for if it were to be disseminated.
And follow up to that is what measures are in place? You mentioned that particular situation, but what other measures are in place to ensure the data privacy for residents who aren't the subject of an investigation, but whose data is captured?
Most people, I mean, if you drove by one of these, it'd be very transparent. We won't share that data. It would only be accessed by law enforcement if they were doing an investigation. That data would not be openly available.
So there are policies in place that dictate who has access, how it can be accessed, how it can be used, collaboration with the cities, or are those under development?
No, there are policies in place already for law enforcement information and how the sensitivity of that and how it can be shared, and that would follow lockstep with that.
I appreciate that. As I mentioned to Mr. Dugan, coming from the domestic violence nonprofit business, I'm always concerned when there's data available that could lead people to find people that have nefarious purposes. So I appreciate your answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I really appreciate Commissioners Fast and Hanslick's questions because I'm sure I'm going to get numerous questions on the civil liberties issue on the security of the information and why their information is being collected when they have not violated any laws. And so I would like to hear your answers. And how many of these cameras are already in place in Johnson County?
I can't answer you specifically for Johnson County because there's almost every agency and law enforcement agency in Johnson County, plus I believe Kansas Highway Patrol, has LPR capability. I can answer for you as far as how many the sheriff's office currently has.
Okay.
And that answer is 5. So as part of the courthouse project, we installed 4 license plate readers on the perimeter of the courthouse, and then we have one out at the sheriff's ops facility.
And how many readers will this buy? Approximately.
At the time we priced this, it would have been 55. My bet is that prices have gone up, and it'll be fewer than that. But our original plan was for 55.
Well, again, I think it's important to know this is not a new program. Cities and the county have been doing this previously, so this is an ability to expand that program. Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To expand on Commissioner O'Hara's question, have there been any legal challenges to the use of this technology in this type of situation by law enforcement or others?
I'm sure there has been, but to my understanding, there have been no issues with it.
Okay, all right. Other questions? Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? Morning, Jeff.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Jeff Harkness, 9407 Blue Jacket. Currently, I'm not sure when Overland Park changed their access to intersection videos, but currently you cannot just randomly access them, I found out. So I don't know if that'll help.
Okay, thank you.
That might be part of this program.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else? All right, if not, it's back before the commission. A motion would be in order. Ms. O'Hara?
I have another question.
Okay, go ahead.
So how does this differ from the videos that's up on the stoplights? How does this differ?
Dave Studite, Chief Security Officer. So these are a high-speed camera that only capture they capture a thumbnail picture of the license tag and the vehicle as it passes in front of it. So it is not a continuous, like a typical intersection camera we have those in place too, because I normally marry this up with a camera, a camera like you're speaking about, with a license plate reader at every intersection. So the camera gives you an overall view of the intersection, and we retain that video for a set amount of time. The license plate reader just is constantly grabbing tags day and night. It doesn't matter. And it just takes that thumbnail picture of the license plate and the vehicle as it passes in front of it.
Okay, so how long is the video stored?
Our county policy that we have set in place when we migrated to the Genetec video management system is 30 days.
But on the license plate, there's no expiration on storage date? You just keep the information?
My recommendation on tag reads is we would keep for 2 years.
2 years.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Ms. Allenbrand?
Mr. Chair, this is also used in abductions and when you're trying to, and I know the cities and the county cooperate all together. So I have a motion when you're ready,
Go right
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. I move to authorize the exception of $595,000 of federal grants for the FY 2022 COPS Technology and Equipment Program for the expenditure of those funds utilizing a KCRPC cooperative contract at EVP-2286 with Electronic Technology, Inc.
Meyer, second.
Allenbrand made the motion, Meyer seconded the motion to authorize the acceptance of the funds as recommended and for the uses as noted. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Fast?
Yeah, I guess, I think the public needs some clarification. We're our local law enforcement and now the sheriff's office will be collecting all these license tags and license tag readers. So when are we using this information? It's not an ordinary, I'm speeding or I went through a red light. It's for certain times, right? We're not big brothers watching everyone going through the light.
Dave Studheit, Chief Security Officer. No, the one thing that should be abundantly clear in the utilization and deployment of these cameras is this is not for traffic enforcement at all. This is, Kansas City, Missouri is kind of the model we've gone off of. They have an inventory of over 500 license plate readers. They've seen a significant drop in their time from, especially in homicide investigations, from the time the offense occurs to when it gets on the district attorney's desk. They've seen a tremendous, I don't have those stats. They've presented those before, and I don't have them, unfortunately, with me today. But these are very much for investigative purposes. And and I know several of the commissioners have gone down to the Real-Time Crime Center with me down to Kansas City, Missouri. They utilize them also, and if I may just give you an example, if there was a crime to occur in an area, one place we're looking at, and we do these in conjunction with the cities, and I understand where you're coming from. We're not going to duplicate, we're not going to have 8 license plate readers hanging off one intersection. So Mission has asked us for help on a certain intersection. We're going to go there. If we'll probably jump on there with these funds. If there was a crime to occur in that area, then we could start looking at that. We can even look at that in real time, quickly, through communications or however we want to look at it, or through, at some point in time in their Security Operations Center, which we're going to stand up at some point. But we can look at that in real time, or the investigators can come back at a later date and start looking at that time, who came through that intersection, what tags did, and it's just a starting point, is what it is.
Well, I think bottom line is that this provides important information in our criminal justice investigations and is an important part of that criminal justice process. That's important to our cities, that's important to the county, so we should move forward with this. Ms. Hanslick?
Yes. I agree with the chair that this is an important law enforcement tool. I do think we have an obligation to ensure that residents and anyone who might be picked up on this reader is assured that their data is secure, that it is not available to just anybody. And I would like to see the policy or the guidelines that are in place for this equipment. I'm supportive of the item, but I'd like to see more information if that's possible.
Ms. O'Hara?
Thank you. Well, the public is extremely sensitive to this, especially since we've had this issue with CONAC and the election office. So this is on a separate storage, IT storage facility that is here in the county and is not shared. We're not buying software from anyone that this possibly could be leaked out as far as the personal information from the car and the tags and the location.
That's correct. So currently, what we have in place now with our 5 license plate readers, all that and all that tag information, those reads go back to a standalone server specifically for the license plate readers that is housed in the basement of the courthouse. And that's behind firewalls. We have had extensive discussions with GEMS and DTI on keeping this data safe. And we just had a meeting yesterday, in fact, about this because there's multiple cities that have also received grant money. Some of the smaller cities wish us to house their feeds. And that's fine, but we have got to find a way. We're working on that currently to get it securely back to us, and then we retain it securely.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Other questions or comments, Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sunday, this technology sounds very similar to the technology that is often used by turnpike authorities that use transponders to track tags of vehicles that attempt to run the turnpike barriers. Is it the same type of technology that's going to be used, capturing tags, time and place, and as you pointed out, for investigative purposes?
So Kansas Turnpike Authority does use license plate readers, and they're on the same system we are.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I have one.
Excuse me, comment?
Yes. So can you give us an example where you have used this information in a criminal investigation, a type of criminal investigation?
Sure. So probably one of our first success stories on our license plate readers, we had a person that we read the tag coming into the parking lot out at Sheriff's Ops. That person ended up parking in a parking spot down there and going over to visit an inmate at the adult detention center. That tag we got a hit on. It was a stolen vehicle out of, it was from Missouri, and I can't remember exactly what city. It was a metro city in Missouri. So they sat on the car, they waited for the person to come back out, and I want to impress upon everyone here, something like that, a hit is not probable cause to stop a vehicle. It's still, the officer in the car still has to pick up the microphone and call dispatch and run that tag, and they will verify that, yes, that is a stolen auto. It's confirmed, because they confirm it with the city that entered it. So they confirmed the tag was stolen, they waited, the person came back out, they arrested him for the stolen auto and found narcotics in the car.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, clerk, please call the roll. The motion is before us.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye, I have 7 votes in favor, motion carried. Next item.
Item number 12, consider approval of agreement between the county and the Unified School District number 232, USD 232, allowing Ryan Jacobson MD, Emergency Medical Director, to assist USD 232 by reviewing and signing the USD 232 opioid antagonist protocol and training the proper personnel in administration of opioid antagonists. The initial term of the agreement will expire on the last day of 2022, but the agreement will renew for additional one-year terms absent 30 days' notice given by either party.
Okay. Mr. Hunt or Dr. Jacobson, are either of those available? Yes. Okay. Go right ahead.
Dr. Jacobson is on Zoom, I think.
All right.
Yes.
Doctor?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Any
Ryan
comment?
Jacobson, the EMS System Medical Director. Yeah, this is similar to the approval that the commission gave for the Shawnee Mission School District, for which I provide the same services. This is allowing, this is just a formalized agreement to provide physician medical direction to the school district specifically for their opioid reversal program. We know the opioid problem is a real issue going on in the county as well, and we provide this service for law enforcement throughout the county, as well as the Shawnee Mission School District and now the new school district that's being proposed. And we've got inquiries from other school districts as well. This doesn't take very much time at all from my office. I provide a brief 30-minute training that I have a template for that meets the statutory and regulatory requirements of the state to get them trained up on how to safely administer Narcan to reverse opioids. And that training's already been completed, and they have to, by regulation, report any administration to a physician medical director within 24 hours. And so I would serve in that role. We have a secure link that they log all of their opioid antagonist administrations to, that we can track that and share that data. So again, this is just formalizing that relationship. There's no fiscal note attached or anything like that. It's just a very good collaborative thing that we offer to the school districts and law enforcement locally.
Okay. How many other districts do we have this agreement with?
Currently, Shawnee Mission School District for several years. I've done some training with Blue Valley School District, and there's some other school districts that have reached out as well that we'd anticipate having similar agreements with.
All right. Thank you. Questions? Ms. O'Hara.
Is this in response to the fentanyl epidemic?
Yes. I mean, initially, this was, the state allowed this for law enforcement and school districts to administer this back in 2017 when we were seeing the first opioid epidemic. But yes, we've continued to see a rise in opioid overdoses in Johnson County as well. And yes, this is a response to that.
Okay, so this is giving staff instructions as to how to administer Narcan?
Yes, so naloxone or Narcan is a reversal for overdoses of opioids. And this allows the school nurses in the school district to be trained on it and to administer it. We also call 911 at the same time where EMS would arrive.
Are we keeping stats as to the number of incidents that are occurring within our schools? Because I think it's very important for the public to understand that our community is being impacted significantly from the drug lords that are having free access across our border, and that this isn't just something far away, that this is impacting our children significantly. So are we keeping this data as to the frequency of school districts having to administer Narcan?
Yes, we do track that. Currently, we've only got data for Shawnee Mission School District for the last couple of years that we've been providing this service, and they have had 2 administrations in the Shawnee Mission School District to reverse an opioid of a student that we have documented. But we also provide this for a lot of law enforcement agencies within Johnson County. We've had over 98 opioid administrations by law enforcement and 40 year to date.
Okay, I would like to see those stats as that are available. And I know I've talked to the sheriff on this issue, and he has indicated that all of the sheriff's officers and the police in the cities, they all are carrying Narcan because of this huge huge issue that our county is facing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Myers. You have a question?
Again, I think Dr. Jacobson answered my questions. I was going to ask for feedback that we're receiving from Shawnee Mission School Districts in their usage of the protocols and see what their response was, but I think you answered that.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Ms. Ellenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope that we can get this in all the schools because it's vitally important that people know how to administer Narcan, and being in a meeting this week with MedAct and some other superintendents, they're getting prepared to have this, but there is no training, and they did warn them, once you administer that, they can actually go wild on you. So being able to contain that behavior is very important.
Well, Dr. Jacobson, I'm sure that you'll continue to work on this. It is an important program, and so thank you very much for your efforts. Ms. Fast?
Yeah, did you say 40 for USD 232 or 40 for all of our schools? I couldn't quite hear it.
No, so part of this is we've offered this to a number of law enforcement agencies. So there's a lot of municipal law enforcement agencies in Johnson County that we have already got this agreement in place with and have provided this for the last several years. And so we track all of those administrations that they're required to report to us within 24 hours. So the total included all of the law enforcement administrations prior to EMS arriving. And that 40 number year to date was total administrations this year to date by law enforcement. So non-EMS, non-fire or EMS. We've had 2 school district school nurse administrations, and those were both in Shawnee Mission School District since we've done this program.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? All right, is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? If not, a motion is in order. Mr. Myers?
Thank you, Chair. I move for approval of the agreement with Unified School District number 232 to support the USD 232's establishment of opioid antagonist protocols for an initial term ending with the last day of 2022 and renewing for an additional 1-year terms absent 30 days notice given by either party.
Allenbrand, second.
Myers made the motion. Allenbrand seconded the motion to approve the agreement with school district number 232 as noted and recommended. Any further questions or comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Next item.
Item number 13, consider authorizing the district attorney's office to add 5 FTE to be assigned to the new criminal court and authorize the reclassification and use of FY 2023 general fund reserves in the amount of $530,000.
Steve? District Attorney, Mr. Howell.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you on this issue. I had discussed this during the budget discussion that I might be back for this reason, but I wanted to outline a little bit of the scope of the problem that we're dealing with right now and put it in context about why we're making this request. First of all, the problem, as many of you already know, for the last 18 months over the let me put it this way. Over the last 3 years, we've lost about 18 months of court time because of the pandemic. That didn't mean we totally shut down, but we lost a lot of very meaningful hearings because of the ability to actually go to trial and have people, basically exercise their constitutional rights. And there's limits on what we can do in the criminal world with the pandemic going into effect. So we lost about 18 months of court time on those very serious hearings and matters. What that means is, not only do we lose hundreds of hearings because we can't go to actual court, but we lost the ability to try in that time period around 90 to 110 cases a year, or for that period of time. And so that had a huge impact on our system. And just as a reminder, the scope of work that we deal with, we file anywhere between 6,500 and 7,000 cases a year, my office does. We also handle 10 to 12,000 traffic cases. So that's the caseload that comes in. That pipeline just continues, and it's pretty consistent throughout the years. Well, with the pandemic and our inability to actually do some of the important work that we do, I asked Jim to do some data mining and try to find out what's the scope of the problem that we're dealing with. And what Jim's determined was, I asked him, I said, do a snapshot each year and tell us how many pending cases where we know there's a future court date. That's the load. That's probably the best way to describe the load that we have in our office. And in 2017 and 2019, they took a snapshot before the pandemic. Those 2 years, we ran pretty consistent. It was about 3,500 cases pending at any one time. They then took 2021, and it was 4,500. And then they took 2022 in September, and we're at 5,500 pending cases. So basically what that means is we have 2,000 more cases in the pipeline than we did before the pandemic. And so that is a measurable change on our office. How that impacts my office? Well, the attorneys in my office typically carry a caseload, a particular case, a criminal case, of anywhere from 90 to 100 cases. That was their typical caseload before the pandemic. Right now, they're running between 165 and 240 cases. Our support staff, our paralegals who support those individuals, and our victim assistance unit that actually supports the victims, they're running double what they normally have. That's 450 cases per person. And so to say that we're overwhelmed is an understatement right now. And I will tell you, I just got back from a conference from the Kansas County and District Attorneys Association. This is all through the state. So we're not unique in the sense that we have this backlog, and it's really impacting prosecutors across the state. But one of the things I tried to do is to mitigate the damage and the impact on my office is we tried to be as efficient as possible. We restructured our office and went to trial teams. We used to have it where our attorneys would have to go to 5 or 6 different courts and run all over the place. Instead, I signed them to a specific court, and so that way we created efficiency. So that really kept our head above water by doing that change in our structure. We also expanded our diversion policies to try to capture some low-level offenders and try to do that. We also created e-discovery to make discovery for the defense attorneys easier for them to access and reduce the load on my staff. We did all those things that we could control to create those efficiencies. But you know, the bottom line is the Kansas statutes have statutory speedy trial, which means that we have to try somebody somewhere between 120 and 180 days, depending on whether they're in custody. It's an arbitrary number, but the statute says that. The Constitution has constitutional speedy trial, which has a more expansive list of factors that it uses instead of an arbitrary number. So we're under that added pressure. That statutory speedy trial stay that the Kansas legislature put in effect goes away in May of next year. So we're all feeling the pressure of if we don't get an amendment by the legislature, we're going to be really under the gun. The one thing that we did not factor into this, so you may say, well, Steve, are you asking for continuances? You know, are you processing cases? So I tracked my numbers this year. 5% of the cases that are continued for trial are by my office. 95% are by the criminal defense attorneys. And it's not what you think. The criminal defense attorneys across the state are overwhelmed as well. To compound the problem, the judges, we're going to talk about this in a second, the governor just appointed 3 more judges. One of those persons that she appointed is a criminal defense attorney that handles court appointments. So we're going to lose one of the key contributors to the defense bar because he's going on the bench. But across the board, the defense attorneys are overwhelmed. Our public defender's office just announced this week they're shutting down for at least a month. And so where do we assign these cases? And so the log jam that we recognized at our conference last week was across the state, whether you're in western Kansas or here in Johnson County, we can't find enough criminal defense attorneys to handle these cases, and it's creating a log jam in our system. I can't control that, as you know. And so that is part of the reason, or at least it's a factor why this backlog has not gone away, because you were nice enough to give me 3 temporary people to eliminate the backlog. And they've done great work in our low-level courts in handling traffic cases and trying to process those. But again, we have that log jam that's creating huge factors in our ability to eliminate the backlog. So we got that all in play. Well then, as I just indicated, the Supreme Court says, you know what, Johnson County, you're big enough now, you have enough cases, we're giving you more judges. So we didn't know exactly what those judges would be covering: civil, probate, domestic, criminal. It was posted in May of this year. The interviews for those candidates was on August 30th, where they named 3 people to send up to the governor, for the governor to look at. And then on October 20th, the governor picked those 3 individuals. And we just got that information. Now, I was notified September 15th by the administrative judge that one of those judges will be handling a criminal court. So what that means for us is we handle, and we ran these stats again through Jim's, we handle 375 cases a day in our courts. We have 12 full-time courts that we handle. And then we have at least 1,800 to 1,900 cases per week that we are processing. So if you put it in perspective, this new court will be about 150 cases a week that will be added to our plate. And the way I equate that to is, you got a certain size water hose, and then all of a sudden you decide to up the ante and the water hose can put out more water. Well, that's basically what I'm dealing with, is I'm going to have a bigger hose of coming through the process that I'm going to have to be dealing with. And that's why I'm making this request for 3 lawyers, a paralegal, and a victim assistance person to staff for that new criminal court that is going to be added to our plate. And so one of the things I know, I met with a couple of you folks. You want data, or kind of like, how does that equate to other jurisdictions as far as our needs? We have 39 lawyers. That's including 3 temporary people. We handle 12 courts full-time, but 15 different courts. We review 10 to 11,000 cases a year submitted by law enforcement. We handle all the appeals, post-sentencing litigation, coma cora. We expunge 400 cases a year. You saw in our stat sheet that involuntary commitments that we're responsible for has doubled in the last 4 years. There's going to be over 300 this year that we're responsible for. There's been a rise in search warrant requests, inquisition requests, and then we also have those 10 to 12,000 traffic cases. Our numbers, luckily, globally have stayed fairly flat. However, the juvenile cases are up 30% this year, and our domestic violence cases are up 16%. So that's a significant increase in those particular areas that are things that we're responsible for.
Okay. All right. Well, Steve, thank you very much. This is very important. I'm in full support of this request. So thank you very much for sharing that information with us. And the 3 new judges have been appointed, kind of, put the focus on the need that your office has. So thank you very much for that information. Ms. O'Hara?
So, Steve, what are the drivers of the increase in juvenile and in the domestic violence? Are you seeing a common thread of this increase?
No, and if I could give you the indication of why those things increase, I'd be making a lot of money. But there, crime is very difficult to define, and the increases and what are the pressure points that cause this. I will tell you that if you talk to the school districts, they will tell you that the shutdowns had a huge impact on the mental well-being of the students. And that, I'm not being political at all. You talk to the schools, and they're still trying to right the ship on that. And so that's had an impact. I think it's had an impact on society in general. Because I think human beings are very social animals, and we lost some of that, and it's taken a while for us to recover. And so it does have an impact. And if you think about it, if we're all stuck at home, it didn't help domestic violence, I can tell you that much. Because if your relationship is already on the rocks, that kind of sometimes sends it over the edge. And so we've seen those types of instances where I think the pandemic and all the social fabric that was kind of unraveled did have an impact in the criminal realm.
So what type of increase in the juvenile type of infractions? I mean, I know that we had the horrible incident at Blackball Park, but in general, what type of juvenile offenses are we looking at?
It's across the board. We've had, unfortunately, quite a bit of felony murder cases committed by individuals under the age of 18, but we've seen the laundry list of cases that are being committed by juveniles. So it's really hard to define that one particular issue or one particular thing is causing that increase.
Yeah, 30% increase is startling. Yeah. And is there any connection with this and the fentanyl coming into our community?
Well, and I know you just heard from Dr. Jacobson. I will say that I've been asking for the data from him, and it's kind of one thing that's kind of under the radar, but it's almost every single day we have a deployment of Narcan to save somebody's life in Johnson County. Yeah. That's what if you take all the numbers from MedAct and law enforcement and schools and hospitals, it's really coming down to almost every single day someone is dying from opiates, mostly fentanyl now. And so it's a serious problem. So I'm glad you've asked about that, and I'm glad Dr. Jacobson discussed it.
Thank you. All right, other question? Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with you that COVID affected everybody, but there was some positive. If you talk to the business community, they're not traveling as much. So there's pros and cons. No matter how we look at it, it was not a good thing. But I'm ready for a motion, okay, Mr. Chair, when you're ready.
All right. Other questions, Ms. Hanslick?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, District Attorney. I had a couple questions. First of all, when the state expanded our judges, do we get any funding along with that, or is that on us to pick it all up?
Most of it is on you.
The judges' salaries are paid by the
right,
state.
Right.
Yes.
But
resources. But beyond that, it's our.
It's on us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's in light of not having the local ad valorem tax reduction money for a long, long time. And then the other question I had is, because we hear about this in a lot of other places, what's the status of the availability of public defenders right now? Because I'm just thinking if we can have more judges and we can have more district attorneys, ADAs, but if we have defendants that can't find a public defender, how does that impact the system, and is that a problem here?
Yeah, it's a log jam. Every public defender's office has been shutting down multiple times. I will say that they typically shut down when they have 60 or 70 cases per person, compared to my folks having 160 to 240. I know the chief judge, I had a meeting with him last night, is going to be talking to the public defender's office about some strategies that we can employ to get them back in the business. But I'm just thankful that I'm not in western Kansas, where some of my peers have said that they've had to go 3 or 4 counties across the state to grab an attorney to come back and help them on a case. So it's, our problems with employment and finding people to work, it's not unique. It's the same problem that you're seeing across the board with the county and being able to hire and bring people in. So we're experiencing that.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Other
you.
questions? Ms. Fast?
Ashcraft can go first.
Pardon?
I'll let Ashcraft go first.
Seniority.
Okay, Mr. Ashcraft, it's your floor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Howell, thank you for visiting with me yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this, and I've been looking at the numbers too and struggling a little bit, and I very much appreciate the challenge that COVID has laid at your doorstep. I think it's real, not just for you, but in many aspects, yes, maybe aspects too, I don't know, of the services we provide. And I do commend you for considering alternate strategies. I'd like you to talk a little bit about, because in looking at the numbers, your staffing levels have been pretty flat for a number of years until the last 4 or 5 you've inched up, including adding a division which are not necessarily related to criminal justice administration, but tangentially they are. But during that same period, I went back, and so since 2009, your increase in staffing has gone up 12%, but almost all of that's been within the last, I'll say 4 years. And we can debate, maybe it's 5, maybe it's 3, but about 4 years. But the actual number of filings, criminal filings, have gone down in the categories that you had provided me, almost 17%. And I'm struggling a little bit because last year, and you made a very persuasive argument for adding district attorney staff to help with the backlog, and I think that makes sense, but we seem to be doubling down on adding to the backlog, and I'm just struggling because it seems like it should work itself out over time rather than adding permanent staff, looking for alternates in the processing. And I understand you're doing that, but why wouldn't we do that first, try to resolve that, finalize that before adding permanent staff?
Well, I will question the 17% drop, because I don't know where you're getting those numbers, because I look at the numbers through the gym system as far as what's coming in. I will say we're pretty flat, because what's happened is certain areas have gone up and down, but ultimately when we look at our gyms numbers, the amount of cases that have come in and what we have filed has been pretty consistent. What I will say is the criminal defense attorneys and the lack of individuals to do that has been a major logjam in the system. It has been defined across the state by prosecutors in dealing with this. The judges, if you talk to our chief judge, he will acknowledge to you that is a major problem right now for our system. And in regards to my request here the last couple of years, and to be blunt, I was sorely understaffed. And let me give you a reason why I feel that way. If you look at Sedgwick County, which has a smaller number of people, we actually updated our list of, Whitney was good enough to finally get a hold of people after we did our submission. They have 64 lawyers. I have 39. Jefferson County, which is one of my peer counties, Jefferson County, Colorado, they have 74 lawyers. 74. And we have 39. And they don't file any more cases than we do. Sedgwick County doesn't handle domestic violence misdemeanors like we do. We file more cases in Sedgwick County. Now, granted, they have more homicides, but we also are very aggressive in handling embezzlements and mistreatment of dependent adults, which are just as complicated as any homicide. And so when you look at those numbers, and I look at the pressures on my staff, and I will tell you, I've lost some of my mid-level staff because of stress related to this. And I know salary compression played a role in that, but I also got to provide some relief to people. And if I keep losing my senior people because they can go make the same amount of money doing traffic tickets instead of dealing with rapes and murders, I've got to provide some support to them. And so my people work very hard at providing justice for the community. And I think, as you've heard me say, because you and I have been through this before, you get a good bang for your buck. We provide a great service for the number of people we have and the number of cases we process each and every year.
Thank you. Good comment. Mr. Icecraft?
One follow-on. Mr. Howell, thank you. The source of my information are the court filings that are posted online, and it was 24,000 plus in 2009 and down to 19,000 plus.
That includes all filings, though, civil, domestic.
No, that's just criminal.
There's no way that's 24,000, unless they're adding traffic to that.
Yeah, well, traffic isn't.
And that could be, you know what, if you're adding traffic to that, you're probably right about the 17%, because during COVID and Kansas Highway Patrol basically was so short-staffed, they stopped patrolling. I shouldn't say this, but they stopped patrolling Johnson County for a while. And so it significantly reduced our traffic case numbers.
Yeah.
So that could be a great, that could be the reason for that number.
All right, thank you. Ms. Fast?
Yes, I mean, I understand, I mean, your workers, I mean, that's really high caseload. It's just also in our role as the commission, property owners do not want to pay more taxes. And everywhere you listen on the radio, we're looking at a recession. And so, in 2020, we added on 2 staff. 2021, we added on 9. 2022, we added on 4. And so then with this 5, it will be 14 new staff. This will be $500,000 for this 5 plus $600,000 for compression. So just since 2020, your budget's increased probably around $2 million. I mean, so it's like, where does that money come from if we go into a recession? If so, then what's our other options in the pie? If we cut mental health, that means more work for you. If we cut aging services, that means more vulnerable people at risk. Transit, housing, so that's my struggle. We are going into really shaky economic times, and the sheriff's office, and medical examiner, we're coming forth with $12 million of additional just in the last month. And so we're going to have to cut from somewhere, because as you know, I see you on TV, property owners don't want to pay more. And so many of our programs prevent work for you. And so I'm just not willing to cut them, but there's one pie. So, I mean, I'm supportive of this, but I will say that if you come forth with more budgetary increases next year, are you planning again? I don't know if I can, because we can't. I mean, we've increased it 11 million. We can't then add on for you next year, add on to the sheriff, and we have MedAct. These people are mandated overtime in our corrections. So we have a lot of needs over there. So I just want to be clear to you that, I feel like I've supported you, during my 4 years, but the next year we really have to all just really look, and where we're at for our property taxes and for our property tax owners.
Well, I would argue that the reason why property values go up is because of public safety in our community. And we're as important as any law enforcement agency, because we're the ones who close the deal. The sheriff could do all the work in the world, but if I can't do my job on the back end, we accomplish nothing.
I will say, when I go door to door all the time, and what I hear about is our parks, libraries, mental health, aging, housing. So I would say those services are not any
just
less
as important
to you, and no one tells me I need more DA staff.
You know what? I agree, because no one thinks about it. No one thinks about the prosecutors and what we do at the end. But again, public safety, if you look at those polls that the county does each and every year, public safety is like number 1 across the board. And again, you don't accomplish what you want to accomplish unless we can close the deal. And I will tell you, when you talk about vulnerable people, we deal with vulnerable people, and that's victims of sexual assault, domestic violence. And so we deal with those individuals. And I don't want to be a drive-up lane where I just put a victim on because I don't have time to prep them before someone's been sexually assaulted and have to testify in court. I'm just telling you the reality of the deal is, I don't want to be that DA. I don't want to be that office that doesn't provide the necessary support to those victims of violence. And so, yeah, I'm asking for more resources. This county continues to grow. It's starting to grow with additional problems. And I'm not shameful of coming before you and asking for these things that have meaningful impact on our community and our people.
Okay, well, thank you for those comments. You know, I would simply add this. Those of us sitting on the dais have to make challenging decisions all the time. And so that's part of the job that we have to do. Ms. O'Hara?
Unfortunately, because we didn't we chose not to address the issues within the Sheriff's Department within our 2023 budget, I think that is multiplying the problems. And we do continue to have additional requests. Yours and the medical examiner's office is coming for more. Yeah, so we're going to have to absolutely look at 2024, and it's just unfortunate that we did not address any of this in the 2023 budget. I think it would have at least helped to mitigate some of these issues.
And I wished I would have known back in May that it was going to be a criminal court, because I would have come before you then, but the courts didn't tell me till September, so that put me kind of behind the eight ball. And I apologize, because I don't like to do this at kind of a mid-year, so I apologize.
All right,
for that.
thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? If not, it's back before the commission. A motion would be in order. Ms. Hallenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve and authorize the District Attorney's Office to add 5.0 FTE to assign to the new criminal court and authorize the reclassification and use of FY 2023 general fund reserves in the amount of $530,000.
Meyer, second.
Hallenbrand made the motion. Meyer seconded the motion to approve the request and authorize the increase in staffing for the District Attorney's Office as noted. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, since this request is outside of the budget process and hasn't gone through that vetting, I would like to have seen the impact of the previous increases before committing to this increase. It may be well justified, but I just don't have the assurance personally that I can support this. Consequently, my vote will reflect that concern.
Thank you. Other comments? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
No.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 6 votes in favor, 1 opposed, motion carried.
Thank you very
Next
much.
item.
Item number 14, consider acceptance of the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $309,766 for the development of the Johnson County Mental Health Court to reduce frequency of individuals' contact with the criminal justice system.
Mr. Fortney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tanner Fortney, Mental Health. So I think as many of you have been aware over the years, we've talked more and more about mental health as well as our involvement with the Sheriff's Office, the District Attorney's Office, and others in the law enforcement community. There's a disproportionate number of individuals that have been incarcerated in the county jail and other types of incarceration venues. And one of the biggest challenges we have with that is there's a lot of individuals that really should not be in those areas. A lot of times there's criminal activity that they may have committed as a result of their mental illness. And we have worked over the years with various law enforcement agencies to try to find those, identify them, and try to help those individuals get into the services they need, because ultimately they really should not be located in those settings. They're not going to get the most appropriate level of care that they need, and we really want to help to prevent recidivism rates in the future. So with that being said, Mental health staff has been working with the district attorney's office and the district court to begin work on implementing a mental health court program. And essentially what this is this would be a program where following an individual, they go to trial, they are convicted of whatever criminal offense they were charged with, depending on what their status was. If it was determined that because of their SMI diagnosis or their SUD diagnosis, the judge can offer them an option where rather than spending perhaps 180 days in jail, whatever the sentence may be, they would refer them to a mental health professional through Johnson County Mental Health. We would assess them, we would prepare a treatment program for them, and then they would go through that. And if they successfully complete that program, then they would essentially not have to follow through with the jail sentence. So that's a program that we're anticipating starting probably within the next 12 months. As of right now, our staff have been working with the district courts to start what we call the planning phase of that. And there's a lot of details that still need to be worked out, and I'll get to that in just a second. But we're anticipating probably in about 12 months is when we're hoping to have that program up and running. So as part of this request, what we're asking for here is for the board to authorize us to accept the Department of Justice grant in the amount of approximately $310,000. This is a little bit different than some of the requests we have that we bring to you, and the reason it's different is because this is a program that we're already putting in place. We're already moving forward with it. We're not before you today to say you need to approve this grant or we can't move forward. What this grant is for is we're just asking you to accept this because these are funds from the federal government that we can use to offset costs that we're going to incur, that the district court's going to incur in order to do that. The other thing I'll just mention is that right now, because we haven't really started the planning phase yet, and that's going to start very soon, there's probably a lot of questions you might have about this program that I may not be able to answer at this time because there's a lot of facets that have to be worked out, and that's something that will be done over the course of the next 12 months. The last thing I'll mention is that there are no FTEs requested as part of this grant, so this is all going to go to non-personnel related expenses. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Well, Mr. Fortney, I think this is a good program going forward, and thank you for the good work and those who are involved in pursuing this effort. Ms. O'Hara?
We're already doing this in Judge Ronell's courtroom, correct?
What we're currently doing is, I think you're referring to a program I brought to you maybe a few weeks ago, which was our mental health diversion program. So this is very similar to that, but the difference is that the programs we're doing right now with the prosecutor's offices in the cities and with our district attorney's office, that is pre-trial diversion. So it doesn't really get to the district court. That's decided beforehand whether or not they would qualify and they go into our services. This is very similar, but the difference is this is post-adjudication once they've actually been convicted.
Well, I went over and I visited with Judge Ronell, and the success rate of his program has been very, very impressive. Can you speak to that?
I don't know if I can speak to the details specifically of that program, but what I can tell you as far as the success rates we've had with the mental health diversion, which they are involved in, is between 2019 and 2021, we saw a successful completion rate of 67% of individuals that have gone through that program. And between January 1st and August 31st of 2022, we've seen an 82% success rate.
Okay, and is this I know that we are in desperate need for a mental health crisis center. How would a crisis center help with this program?
Well, it would kind of depend. I mean, certainly a crisis center would be very beneficial to individuals that are in crisis. I suppose, I really hate to speculate on these things, but obviously if someone is in crisis, if they're able to get into a crisis center and receive some sort of emergency treatment and then hopefully be able to get them into our services, that would hopefully reduce the chances of an individual going out and engaging in criminal activity.
So is there a difference between a mental health crisis center and a mental hospital, like Osawatomie?
Yes, there is a difference between those. Usually when you're dealing with a mental health crisis center, that's an acute situation where you're dealing with someone who is in crisis. It's not intended for long-term residential services in most cases.
Okay, and I understand that Douglas County, that actually in the state of Kansas, there is not a license for a mental health crisis center. Is that correct? And that they had to go through the licensure of being a mental hospital?
I would need to check on that and get back with you.
I think Mr. Bauer would be the one to respond to that.
Okay, Thank you.
And so, Ms. Hanslick.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to respond to Commissioner O'Hara. You are welcome to come and sit in on our crisis continuum task force. This is exactly what we're talking about, so you'd be welcome to come to that. To Mr. Fortney, so one of the things I'm trying to wrap my head around here is this a mental health court, but also a drug court? Because we're talking about mental health, substance use disorders. And so I'm trying to understand how this would be the same or different than having a drug treatment court.
So we do have a drug treatment court. We also have a veterans treatment court that specializes in those. This is really kind of expanding some of that. And again, this is post-adjudication. So it's kind of similar to a lot of those, but we're attacking things from a different angle. We're doing more, as much as we really can, to try to get those individuals into our services.
So these would, the individuals would be people with their primary diagnosis or issue would be mental health.
Yes, although, however, if we do have a situation where it's an MHSUD, which is a mental health substance use disorder, they would still be if they were charged for that. And a lot of times, I'd probably just mention too that you often have a lot of times, you have co-occurring occurrences there, where you have individuals that they could be on substance abuse, or they could be diagnosed with an SUD treatment, but at the same time they've engaged in other activity, and that may or may not have been the primary cause of it, but that could also be involved in the legal proceedings.
Thank you.
Mr. Meyer.
Thank you, Chair. Is this a one-time grant opportunity, or is it something that can be ongoing?
This is a one-time grant opportunity. It's going to be able to be used to cover basically the first 3 years of the program, which would include phase 1, which is the planning phase, which would be over the next 12 months, and then it would cover the next 2 years of costs that we have to be able to have the roughly about 50 individuals that we anticipate going through the program.
It's multi-year, which I'm glad to hear that. But as many have expressed up here on the dais today, the concern is always how is this going to affect future budgets. But I'm supportive of this grant and this program that you're involved with.
Well, it seems to me the success of this program would have a positive impact on ongoing costs for those who complete it successfully, it seems to me. Ms. Fast?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen huge results in terms of, community reentry, not cycling back into our jails, also helping people when they get into jail treat with their mental health. This background briefing, it doesn't really specifically say where is this funding going. I mean, I know we've been talking about a mental health treatment court. This is, Judge Warnell's been working on this, but it's just this $300,000 going for planning. Are we hiring a coordinator staff? I'm just not really clear. What are the outcomes of this grant, that we're going to report to them that we use the funds for?
Outcomes, did I hear outcomes?
Hey, so other people care about outcomes too.
Mr. Fortney, can you respond to that?
Sure. So roughly in the first year, about $58,500 will be going actually to personnel costs. That would include Judge Wanell, several of our mental health staff, including our data scientists that will be developing metrics and data for the program. There's also some trainings that staff will be going to and some other collaborative events and conferences. There's also reimbursement in there for other types of personnel costs, such as healthcare benefits, other things that our staff are incurring as part of that. And then there's also some additional costs in terms of general supplies and things that are associated. And I think about the first year for the planning piece, it's roughly about $90,000 to $100,000 is what we'll spend to get reimbursed.
So basically, Judge Warnell is going to dedicate some of his time to this and won't be doing his duties for the courts, and that will be with some other staff too. Part of their time will be dedicated to this.
Well, I can't
that
say
what-
that he won't be doing his duties to the court, but he's
Well, I
clearly
mean,
going.
but part of his time then is being paid for, that he's gonna, it's towards this. That's what you said. You can't.
Well, correct,
double
he's
dip.
gonna, we have a certain amount of time that we estimate that he will be spending on this along with the other staff, and we've calculated what those costs would be, and so this grant will help reimburse us. Those aren't costs, I want to make sure I'm clear, those aren't costs that are above and beyond what we're currently spending on salaries and benefits. I mean, if we didn't accept this grant, it would not really change our budget, but accepting this grant just reimburses us for costs we're already going to incur.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Allenbrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is going to be a great program, just like the other program that's already in place, and it's going to reduce the amount of people that will need crisis beds. It's going to reduce the amount of people that are being incarcerated for mental health issues and among other issues. So, Mr. Chair, when you're ready, I do have a motion ready.
All right. Another question, Ms. Hanslick.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Forney, is this, it doesn't say it in the briefing sheet, but is this the Edward Byrne grant? We used to call it JAG.
I'm not sure if that is the same grant or not. I know that this is the grant that we had applied for.
Okay. The reason I ask is, when I was with Safe Home, we received funding from this grant, and I know that we were able to renew it, and I'm just wondering if this is a grant that has possibility of being renewed after those 3 years.
All right.
We can certainly apply for additional grants, there's no question about that.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? If not, comes back before us, a motion is in order.
I had a question.
You have a question? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fortney, a couple of questions. I'm trying to clarify. These monies you have indicated will be an offset of existing. So what happens to those funds? Are they turned back to the general fund, or are they put into reserves? Are they spent on something else that you have in mind? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, probably the budget office could speak to that better than I can. For the mental health, I'll speak for that piece though, but for ours, we are a special revenue fund. We're an outside fund from the general fund, so those costs that would come to reimburse us would fall to our fund balance.
Okay, well, that would make sense, but I just wasn't clear now. And the second question, Mr. Fortney, is one that I often ask. How are you going to measure success in this program? And you've talked a little bit about this, and you've indicated that you're going to develop performance measures, but how will we know a year from now, 3 years from now, that this program has had the impact, the outcomes, as Commissioner Fast pointed out, on the population that we're trying to serve?
Sure, so a couple of things. So I think the first and most basic metric that we're going to look at is just what we do with the mental health diversion program and the treatment courts, is we want to look to be able to see the individuals that have actually been referred to the program, what was the successful completion rate of their treatment plan. That's important, as we do with anyone that is a mental health client, to make sure that they're achieving that. So I think that's really the first measure of success that we want to see. In another measure of success that we really would want to look at, but I can't really exactly tell you right now how we're going to track it, because there's some hurdles that are going to have to be overcome, and that's part of what is going to be discussed in the planning phase. But we do want to be able to see, over time, are these individuals having additional contact with law enforcement? Is there a recidivism rate that's being decreased as a result of this? Hopefully there are. Now, there are going to be some hurdles with that. I don't want to overpromise what we can deliver, because oftentimes, especially if these people, they have to be compared against others that are in a similar situation that would not be receiving the treatment. So that could be people that would have qualified for this, but they chose not to do that. They chose to either spend their time in jail or whatever the case may be. And it's very difficult to get data on those people for us, because those aren't clients of ours. And if they move out of the area, they could commit crimes in other jurisdictions, and we may not have that data. So we're trying to work through what we can do to try to come up with some way of being able to track that and compare it. But that's a hurdle that we haven't overcome yet. But as I mentioned, one of my data scientists will be working on this committee as part of the work group to start putting together ways on how we can be able to evaluate that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, do I hear a motion, Ms. Ellenbrand?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to accept the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant and the amount of $309,766 for the development of the Johnson County Mental Health Court to reduce frequency of individuals' contact with criminal justice system.
Hanslick, second.
Ellenbrand made the motion. Hanslick seconded the motion to approve the acceptance of the grant as recommended. Any further questions or discussion? If not, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Myers.
Myers, aye.
Commissioner O'Hara.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Hanslick, aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Allenbrand.
Allenbrand, aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Eilert, aye. I have 7 votes in favor. Motion carried. Are there any other items?
No, sir.
All right, moving to reports and communications, Ms. Post-Oak Ferguson.
Chairman, could I
I'm
please
sorry.
ask for a 5-minute break?
Okay, you bet. So noted. We will take a 5-minute break and then come back.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will reconvene from our recess, and we will begin with County Manager's report. Ms. Post-Oak Ferguson.
Chairman and Commissioners, have 3 items. First, I'm pleased to share that the Director of Emergency Services, Chief Paul Davis, was appointed to the 988 Coordinating Council by Governor Kelly for a 4-year term through June 2026. And the purpose of the council is to advise the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services, KDADS, on the implementation and delivery of 988 services, strategies for future enhancements to the 988 system, and the distribution of funds to organizations providing services as National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Centers. Chief Davis joins 10 other members appointed from around the state. The second item, the City of Lenexa notified the board that they will be conducting a public hearing Tuesday, November 1st at 7 p.m. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the issuance of $21 million in industrial revenue bonds and a 10-year 50% property tax abatement. The project is to construct a new office, warehouse, and manufacturing facility located at approximately the southeast corner of 95th Street and Twilight Lane in Lenexa. The notice of public hearing and cost-benefit report showing a 2.0 cost-benefit ratio for Johnson County were attached to the manager's memo. Next item, the City of Shawnee notified the board that they will be conducting a public hearing Tuesday, November 14th at 6 p.m. The purpose of the public hearing is to consider the establishment of a redevelopment district in the City of Shawnee. A map depicting the boundaries of the redevelopment district is attached. And with that, Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, questions? Mr. Myers?
What's that date, November 14th?
Yes, I think in an earlier notice, we had it wrong, so we fixed it to November 14th.
Okay. No further questions? Excuse me, Ms. O'Hara?
Yes. I checked with President of the City Council, Eric Jenkins, because I have concerns about TIF districts, and he said that this is a conservation tax increment finance district. No proceeds from the TIF go to the developer, and the taxes generated from the TIF go to the city to be used for infrastructure, roads, and sewers.
Okay.
Just wanted to give the rest of the board this information.
Thank you. Mr. Ashcraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner O'Hara, thank you for that, because we have not had many TIF creations before us. I think the last one was the DeSoto sunflower plant, and it raised my perspective on that, so I appreciate that investigation and that report.
All right. If there are no other questions, we'll turn to commission comments. Ms. O'Hara?
I think that today pointed out that we need to be very careful in our budget process. I, again, am very concerned that we didn't address the needs of the Sheriff's Department in the 2023 budget, and that has been an add-on, and it is going to be extremely challenging for the 2024 budget. We're just, it's problematic. We're really looking at a lot of stresses as far as inflation. I know we're going to have a committee of the whole with the wastewater district on an update with the Nelson plant. I hope that there's not significant increases in the cost there, because it's already gone up from $425 million in January of 2021 when I came into office, and I believe it's $574 million is the cost estimate. So there's just a lot of challenges that are coming before us, and I just am very concerned, and I know that my colleagues are also very concerned. Thank you.
Mr. Myers?
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, I attended the KCATA general meeting. Went very well. Also this week, I went with the environmental programming manager, Mr. Trent Thompson, and other members of his organization to tour a CD landfill, construction and demolition landfill, recycling center, and compost site in Lee Summit, and that's run by KC Disposal. And it was very enlightening, very good tour, and gained some knowledge about some things I didn't understand about C&D landfills, so very good.
Thank you. Ms. Hanslick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last Friday, I was in attendance at the First Suburbs meeting. That is a group of representatives, particularly from the cities, but also the counties in the metro area. And housing is a big subject that we discuss. Also had a MARC meeting yesterday and had a really interesting report from the Wyandotte EDC about their efforts to meet their childcare needs. And then I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. We will have our first meeting of the Regional Housing Partnership Strategy Committee, and I'm very pleased that I'd been asked to serve as the Kansas co-chair for that committee. Raina Park Shaw is the Missouri co-chair. So looking forward to continuing to work to address our housing needs. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just coordinating with the chairman, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, if I am taking some of your thunder, but some of us will be attending the City of Olathe annual meeting at the Embassy Suites tomorrow, and I look forward to that event. I did want to make two points for the record, Mr. Chairman. And I know this may technically not be the last day for the right-hand person of the county manager, but that person is going to have a couple of weeks of vacation, I believe. Given the transition of leaving a new position and moving to, or leaving an old position and moving to a new position, I hope you enjoy your time off, and I hope you're somewhere where the cell phone reception does not work. Because a lot of people will want to be talking to you, wishing you well, and also getting those final details. The last thing, Mr. Chairman, is I was just going to ask you if you were doing anything special this weekend.
I'm going to my alma mater's homecoming.
Well, will you be recognized for any particular anniversary in your life?
I don't think so.
Well, I will wish you a happy birthday anyway, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Ms. Allen Brand.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad somebody brought donuts this morning for your birthday.
Oh, was it for his birthday?
Yeah, I saw the note.
Oh.
So I will also be attending the Olathe Chamber and the mayor address tomorrow. Also, the Quarry in Gardner's having an open house on Saturday if anybody wants to go out to the Quarry to see what they do. And then being the liaison on the Airport Commission, there was a federal grant that they applied for that was for $5 million, and this is out in Commissioner O'Hara's district. It's at the Johnson County Executive Airport, but it paid for the entire rebuild of taxiway.
Yes.
May I ask Commissioner Allen Brand a quick question?
Sure.
Okay, how is the Halloween? It's the Halloween.
In fact, it's on my list today to call the neighbors, but it's going very well.
Good.
Very well.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
the staff, the planning staff have been going and doing visits out to both of the permits, out, so,
And bringing back candy.
yeah, really. So.
And I'm going to one of them tomorrow. Not the drive-through. The drive-through, all the slots were gone like within a week, because I got on within a week. And so, and I looked, they didn't have a lot of slots at all to register. So I'm excited to go to the other one. I've been appointed to the regional housing planning. I'm really excited since this was my top priority during my last years of service. So I think it will be great to work with the other counties on this housing planning issues.
Okay. Thank you. Well, let me also say, Mr. Thompson, congratulations, enjoy Phoenix, and I hope you don't run out of water.
Yeah.
He's up in the mountains, so he
Oh, okay.
And we hope that you miss us so much that you come back.
Also, tomorrow, Friday, at 3 p.m., there will be a reception and a farewell for Dr. Ariola. So for those who can attend, and I will also be attending the Olathe State of the County address tomorrow. So with that, we are adjourned. There's no request for an executive session. We'll come back for agenda review. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.